Have a good day.
Hey,
We're going
Chris,
to transition into the toy god. I keep, wondering, should I send you my crown or a couple crowns? What do you think, Carmine?
Just a Burger King crown is fine.
No, this is the Burger King. This is a different one. This is the Burger King.
Burger King guys, Matt, you didn't do that Burger King design. That guy's scary, man.
No, that's from the 70s, man. That's pretty.
That's way back.
But I do have my lion latch.
Look at that.
Whoa.
Look at that.
There you go.
You got your ring in there.
Yeah. Oh no, I lost the lion latch.
You're supposed to latch it onto something with your keys. I always tell my kids,
instructions.
like, you're looking for your keys, stop. When you go to a restaurant, put, like, if your credit card or whatever you need, your money, put it next to your keys. You're going to need those to leave. They should be together.
Yep.
They're learning.
Wow.
All right, cool. So let's talk about the toy industry. I mean, what is our group of people? I mean, what a great day we've had so far, huh? The guests have been amazing. It just keep getting better and better. And now we got Matt, who's better than Matt in the toy industry?
No. I think I'm the indication that now it's going down.
No.
We have reached the peak.
right.
Maybe that's why
Downhill
Chris jumped
from
back
here.
on. He's trying to rescue. He's gonna
But you know what?
No. I jumped on because every time I just had lunch with Matt, maybe about 2 weeks ago, and he's such a cool dude, and it's such an honor to have him. We're very lucky, and that's what I wanted to say. I'm jumping back off.
We are
Very
100%. Every time I speak with Matt on Zoom or something, I'm not really listening to him because I'm trying to see what the hell's behind him. All of the cool stuff behind him from years and years going by. I mean, I can't get a look at it because it's not clear enough.
Yeah. Oh my. Yeah. If you can't handle overstimulation, you should not come visit Design Edge. It's like it's just everything everywhere. Well, I call it a false paradise because if you're like a kid and you come here, you're like, awesome. And I'm like, touch nothing. Right? Because it's either vintage toys that are worth a fortune or it's prototypes that will literally kill them if they play with them. So I can't let them like touch anything.
That is funny.
Well, I hope you got a chance to watch Chris Trapper. I know you're a big guitar guy.
Yeah.
What a good story. He's a good dude. Love Chris.
Yeah. It's always inspiring. That's why we call our event Inspire, right? Because that's where we get the right people together.
Absolutely. So let's talk about the toy industry. What do you see going on there, and what do you see the next wave of stuff? Because they canceled the show this year, right? I mean, it's like Conscious now being canceled again, which is just a bummer.
It's canceled, but it's not. So the in-person show is canceled, but the Toy Association is still setting up a lot of virtual appointments and meetings, and we do our own inventor thing too, the Creative Factor, which is also being set up, and we're going to now, when they were previously going to meet with the inventors at the toy show, they'll now be doing something similar to what we're doing here through the Toy Association, which the UIA is connected with. We work with the Toy Association.
So what's happening in the toy industry? I mean, are you guys getting involved in any of these NFTs? My kid is like, my older boy is so into this stuff. Is that a next wave of things? Oh
yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, that was just the moment those three letters got smacked together, people were calling me to see what could be done. Yeah, of course, anything, toys are trends, they are fashion. So anytime anything's blipping up on the radar, trust me, there's a toy company trying to figure out how to monetize that for their own benefit. So yeah, so are we working on stuff on that level? Yes, we are. Can I tell you what that is? Absolutely not.
Oh, what do you mean you can't? I mean, that's like offering me candy and saying, I'm just kidding. Well, you can't have it.
We're a product development company. If I can't start, blabbering around what people are working on, it would be very bad for business.
That's why he didn't really show us the real room yesterday.
Right.
The real toy room. Oh yeah, he called it the bathroom. It's not the bathroom, it's the development lab. Now I understand.
Actually, what you don't realize is this is the bathroom. You don't want to see where I'm sitting. Maybe I do need that crown. Yeah.
Hey, Matt. And as we get into this stuff, go back to basically. I mean, you're basically living the dream here. You got basically born into the toy industry, right?
Yeah. I grew up in the toy industry. My father was in the industry before I was born, and worked with several toy companies, some relatively large ones. And then when I was about, I showed up on a lot of toy packaging. That was like a big thing when I was a kid to to this day, my friends will, run across like a Dukes of Hazzard toy package with my face on it and send it to me and harass me about it. But yeah, when I was 14, the company my father was working for was sold to another company in Chicago. My dad's like, I do not want to move to Chicago, and started Design Edge with my mother, who was an illustrator and an art teacher, out of the garage. And I was drafted from day one, and been back in old school, like pre-computer. So we were in a design company. I was laying down register tape and cutting Ruby Lift. And as we got bigger, we had a stat camera. It was my job to clean it. I don't know if you remember those things, but those things were some scary old school technology.
Yeah.
And then I think Design Edge grew in leaps and bounds because my mother was a really early adapter of computer-aided design. And we became the studio that was doing that. And then we were the hot studio, and we just started gaining more and more momentum. And fast forward almost 35 years later, we're still going strong, if not bigger than ever. So
amazing. So a lot of times, like my daughter, she doesn't want to know anything about what I do. It's one of those things where you're like, now when you were doing these, working, and were you actually interested in the business, where you were like, wow, this is so awesome? Or were you just doing it because that's what you were doing?
I mean, I always enjoyed it. So when my father worked for HG Toys, it was about circa 1983 or 84, I would go with him during Toy Fair season to HG Toys on like a Saturday, because they'd have so much work to do to get ready for the Toy Fair. Back when Toy Fair was 2-3 weeks long, and it was the show. There was no other shows. So I guess my mother wanted me out of her hair. So my father would bring me to work, and I would hang out in the model department all day. And I actually, like the previous day, whatever, watched like that Kung Fu theater that used to be on, I know you're from the New York area. I saw those dub shows and saw a whole bunch of ninjas. So I sculpted a bunch of ninjas and made some ninja weapons. And I was like, you guys should make this. There were no ninja toys on the market at all, right? And it actually became a category. And all the older toy guys now, or, most of these guys retired, still call me the ninja kid for identifying the category. And CBS, as in the CBS Broadcasting Company, actually bought all the rights for it.
Wow.
Yeah, I made nothing on it because my father was an employee, and that was that. But that was my first entree into the toy business. And then as a teenager, working in the studio, I got to work on some legendary products that at the time I didn't know were good. Like, the Power Glove, I worked on that, and Tickle Me Elmo, I worked on that. Wow. And Pogs.
Remember the Power Glove? That's going back, man. I remember that thing.
Yeah. And Pogs, and, all these different trends over the years. And and at the time I was like, Tickle Me Elmo did, I remember that when that came around, by the time at the stores, it was like 95, 96. I was early on in college, and I remember like, we worked on that 2 years ago. And now it's like everywhere. It's like all over the news.
That's amazing.
We had one.
Because it's the toy industry, people think that it's a fun industry, which it probably is, but it seems to me like it's a tough industry to be in.
Oh, it's very difficult. I mean, you really have to have your shit together, right? It's there's no room to mess around. My clients are billion-dollar corporations, multi-billion-dollar corporations. There's timelines, there's regulations, there's understanding manufacturing. It's a fashion-based business. There's a lot going on. It's heavy. It's cute on the outside. It's really, but it's a business. Not like all other industries, right? There's no difference at the end of the day between that hit toy and a BMW, right? Like the stuff that Chris did with BMW. At the end of the day, they're both products that have to perform extremely well and be well engineered and well designed and hit and resonate with the consumer. So yeah, just because you think it's cute doesn't mean it's right. There's a lot that goes on. There's so much.
So, man, when you get involved with this stuff, how early? Like, so let's say Mattel or somebody calls you up and they have
we
this
generally
new
are.
product.
It depends on if we're talking because we do a lot of things here. So, but generally speaking, we're first step. I get all the time. My big joke is, because it's actually happened, is I get handed or wet napkins.
Yeah.
Or I get a quick phone call. Hey, we were thinking about this. Can you do a whole bunch of renders? Just the rendering part of our business, the amount of concept renderings that we do that never get made, not because we did anything wrong, but just because it gets weeded out, and and then we get to something that actually hits and everyone gets excited about, then they have to build a budget and we have to develop something, and it can take a year to get something from that concept to the point where it's presentable to retail, and a lot of heavy development can go into these things.
Does Disney have their own platform, or do they use like Mattel or something? Or do they come directly to you?
I mean, we have worked with, we communicate with Disney on certain things, and we liaison and help with the licensing approvals, but Disney license out their concepts, well, not their concepts, their brands to major toy companies.
Yeah.
So we will do the development for a company that has the license for said Disney product, and then it has to be presented to Disney for their approvals, and they give their notes, and then so it becomes a three-way team. And in some instances, we're part of that team. In some instances, there's a product manager who liaisons between all of that.
Yeah. See, so to your point, to what you just said, that sounds pretty cool. Because like even in BMW, right, I had the plant responsibilities, but I was connected to the design group. So anytime they were coming up with new stuff, they wanted to fly me to Germany to the Centrum to look at it. And then you would see all these new cars developed. You couldn't talk about it. I mean, there was back then it was 10 years. Now it's like a 3-year span. But you'd see these cars, you go, that thing's not going to sell. 10 years later, it's selling. I mean, but that's the futuristic, the whole new design platform being futuristic in some degrees, looking at it going, wow, it looks really, really different. But that's what they wanted. They wanted a whole different look, rounding them up. And
BMW is a fantastic company, and I'm a fan. And I actually hope someday I can afford to buy an original 2002. I think that'd be really cool to have one of those.
Yeah, no, I'm
those
telling
of
you,
you who don't know, a 2002 isn't the year the car came out. It's a model.
Yeah, right. No, but it was like for you to see that same thing. You're doing the development work, and then a year later, 2 years later, hitting the market.
We forget stuff all the time. I constantly, hey, what's the hit toy this year? And I'm like, I don't know. That's like, I'm not ask the marketing guys. They know.
Yeah.
Like that's them right now.
So how about individual inventors? How do you work with them?
Well,
very carefully.
Yes, very carefully. As you guys know, being on the UA, we get approached on a very heavy, regular basis. But at the end of the day, there's two major factors that help me determine if I'm going to work with an individual, or maybe even three. But the two first is the concept itself has to be strong enough for them to cut through the minutia and be able to get to market, right? Because they're going to be a 1 to 3 item company, and they're competing with companies on a grand scale. And two, and probably more importantly, like I have to gel with them, because while I joke a lot and stuff, I can also be very tough and I get things done. I don't have time.
Honest. You're honest. You're straightforward and honest.
Or you're busy.
Yeah, and I'm busy, and there's only so much time I can put in. And I have a staff and a team, but everyone wants to talk to me, which is fine. And but I want to guide, and I want to make sure that it's done right. Also, the third thing, which is also very important, is does that individual truly want to own a company, a toy company, in the toy business, right? Some of the people come to me and they're like, I have this cute idea and I want to develop it, but they kind of just feel like they'll do this on their spare time and they'll make a few, and if it sells, it sells. Isn't this going to be fun? Now I have something to talk about while drinking wine with my friends on a Saturday. It's just not that I tell everyone, you can't open up a restaurant that's only open when you feel like it. Once you build this company, you are chained to it. So be prepared for that. You have to have that entrepreneurial spirit.
It's a good
of course,
point.
we also work with inventors and do some licensing brokering too. That's a little bit different because that's purely the concept has to be strong, or I have to see something in that concept that can be taken to the next level. And I also look for people that are prolific and don't have just one good idea. I want people who are really just chiming things out that can be guided a little bit, that I can go, hey, you've been coming up with some good ideas. Like, can you come up, here's a list of things, see if you can think of things in these areas, and here's some reference to some other stuff. And that seems to have worked. I've had a few inventors that, on their spare time, I give them sort of almost assignments, and they come up with some ideas, and we've managed to license them.
Yeah, wow, that is pretty cool. I always thought of, I've been a design engineer my whole life until I really got into manufacturing. So I was like the early stages. I'm going to date myself now, unfortunately, but the digital 1170 VAX, right? The big mainframes, the big GE Calma systems. I was doing 3D modeling back then. Well, that's the 80s, right? I mean, look at it now. Like, look at the difference now compared to like what I grew up with. It's insane, the technology. How much, I mean, I'm sure, I mean, you know, the pro engineers and all those other programs, which I learned at some point, including the finite element analysis programs, but man, the technology is 3D printing.
In the 90s, I can remember having to have 2 computers because I would hit save on one and I would need 30 minutes
Calculate
for
it.
that to save before I could get back on it, you know, because it was only initially when we'd read the paper. If you had to save 2 big things at once, you would just read the paper and be like, I don't know what to do right now. It's like, I gotta wait, you know, it's crazy, you know, and storing everything on like zip and jazz drives and all that crazy stuff. Remember all that?
I remember the jazz and zip drives. I remember the zip drives. Yeah.
Really dating myself. Yeah.
Wow. That's crazy. Yeah, no doubt about it. 286. And I used to hit the turbo button.
Right. Yeah.
It didn't do anything, but I just hit it.
It wasn't even connected. It was just like somebody in design.
Especially, I mean, some of the
finite elevator button over and over again. You think it's
some of the FEAs, the finite element analysis that I would do would take 2 days, because you'd be doing like on a strut seal in a car, like what the load bearing was on that area, and it would be in a quad node element, so it was really tight. So a lot of math calculations. I'm thinking this thing would take a day and a half to run. That was back then. That was my computer. I was done. I couldn't use anything for a day and a half. And then, you know, then after you're done running, you analyze it and go, let me make a couple of changes to the design and see if it lessens some of that stress, and I can get the red area back out into green, and you have to run it again. You spend a week just doing analysis. So I can't even imagine like the speed of now, even us doing business with like now, like Zooms and not having to be in person. You know, we were talking about that a little bit with Chris Trapper, being able to perform live now on a big audience from your computer, as opposed to being in a big arena. Definitely very different, but it still gives you so many avenues to meet and to conduct business. The whole industry is so different now. I mean, kids don't understand what they have, honestly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we have these insane tools that can do some insane things. And it's our jobs as inventors and designers to figure out how to utilize these things and take advantage of them and progress to the next level, right? That's what the United Inventors Association is all about, right? Making sure that we can help people take their seed of an idea and help birth it, bring it out there, and let people know what's going on. And luckily, we live in an era now where inventors have access to all these things. What I would have done 20 years ago for a 3D printer.
Oh, wow.
Man. You know, or now that you can do, you know, short run production wasn't even an option. Or let's go past that. All these entrepreneurs that we're talking about, the Lion Latches of the world, right? Amazon. You used to need vendor numbers. You couldn't start a company randomly.
That's right.
There's no way, because even if you had a great idea, you'd have to approach the Walmarts and Targets of the world, or back then Kmart or Sears, whoever you're dealing with, and show them your one item, and they'd say it's great, but we don't set up one item companies. So come back to us when you've got another item. Now what do? Right? You couldn't just birth a company with one item. You needed investors, and you needed to have a line from day one. You don't have to do that anymore. You can put your stuff on all these omni-channel online stuff and grow it to your own comfortable scale.
You know, it was like listening to Joy today, right? Like, again, I just keep bringing that up because she's real. It's a real person. It wasn't an actor.
She's from my neck of the woods. We're all real over here. Hey. He froze. I scared him.
Yeah. You know, he's scaring him all the time. You know, that's what I think too. You're in a good area, an area that are hustlers, they're business people, things like that. So I think that inventors should really seek out that type of environment so they can move their products quickly through things, especially if they're taking on partners or helpers or things like that. You know, you really, you know, not trying to be mean about the rest of the country or the world, but there are some segments of areas in geography that are just very, very good at business and moving things along.
Yeah, well, there's traditionally there are hubs for certain types of industries, right? And if you happen to live in that hub, you're gonna have some advantages, right? Even if now that's sort of gone on a global scale, it's still better. Like if you're in the carpet business, to live in the carpet belt, right, where it's all around you, right?
Yep.
But you know that is changing, and the world is expanding, and even ourselves with the UIA, we've been connecting on a larger global scale significantly even within the last 6 months, let alone the last couple of years. You know, we're learning a lot and we're expanding at a rapid rate, and it's a very exciting time to be part of the UIA.
Yeah, I agree. Very, very much, you know, and we have many, as you mentioned, many inventors that are approaching us with products throughout all different segments and markets. And does it seem to me, and you know, that's one thing that you mentioned, you know, do you really, and I'm, you know, going to get some inventors that are mad at me. Do you really see when somebody approaches you a new idea?
Do I see a new idea? Depends on how you look at that, right? Because I'm of the ilk that there's only so many foods in the world, right? You can't invent a new food, but you can have a new recipe.
There you go.
Right. So it's really just a matter of how much more paprika you splashed on that chicken, right? that makes the difference and makes people keep coming back. So yeah. So again, like music, there's only 12 notes, right? There's only 12 notes a man can play, but there's infinite amounts of songs.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
really, I just, you know, but I've actually met people that are like, you're an inventor. I've had people say to me, I thought everything was invented. I just stare through them and just like, it's nice to meet you. Like,
yeah, exactly. I'll let you know that. Exactly. Now I know you're big into the music scene too. Do you have any ideas or any kind of inventions that people present to you in the music side, or guitars or drums or things like that?
Yeah, I've been, you know, we've broached and spoken to, you know, big music chains, and actually I was in the first national commercial for Sam Ash Music when they did a commercial. And at the time, my band was pretty popular in the area, and they approached us and asked us to be the stars of the video while they filmed us playing for their commercial. Yeah, it was their first national commercial.
Wow,
yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so yeah, I had some connections there for a while, and we pitched them some stuff. You know, the music is more is a tough one, right? Because it's a lot of these style instruments have been around for millennia, right? And it's and then, but you're also competing with, you know, big people like brand names. It's like clothing, right? They're just like, you can give them the same two shirts, and one could be slightly better, but this one has the right brand name on it. You know, it's just, so it's hard to innovate there, but things can be done. I haven't been part of a massive innovation in the music yet, but I would love to. You know, it's just, what is the next big thing?
Yeah, no doubt. But you know, it's funny, back then it just seemed like it was easier for mass media. You know, there was only a few channels, obviously, but you know, you were in the toy industry, so they said, hey, we need a kid for this packaging. Hey, Matt.
Yeah, I've actually, it's all about timing. When I was in college at FIT, I was literally walking down the street, and they're like, here, we need you. It's like, you want to be in an ad campaign? I'm like, for what? For Calvin Klein CKB. So there's big pictures of me, like all young and fit and like shirtless in like a really sleazy wood panel room, like advertising like Calvin Klein CKB. Yeah. And I don't even know where they are anymore, because I had copies, and then after a few moves, couldn't find them anymore. And I'm really hoping they don't show back up, because that will. Maybe I shouldn't have talked about it right now, because somebody's gonna, like, some internet slot's gonna find it. I was like, oh,
you're gonna be getting an award on stage, and they're gonna say,
yeah. Well, I remember I had thought it had disappeared for a long time, and then maybe 5 or 6 years after that, like way after I was out of college, I was like walking through Nordstrom's at Christmas once, and there's a giant cardboard cutout of me, like, oh.
Oh, that's scary.
That's
scary.
Yeah. So I've given up on the modeling. Modeling's not for me. Yeah.
Well, you do a lot of stuff. I see you post a lot of stuff too, mountain biking and doing different things. Do you, as Joy was mentioning earlier, is your family involved in the toy biz?
Is my kids and whatnot? Yeah. Well, yes. Well, yes and no.
Well, they play with toys.
Yeah, they play with toys, and my boys have been and we've used them for TV commercials and packaging as well. They also
child labor. I like that.
It's free, you know. I'm like, you guys want to work for the family business? I'm like, fine. We're gonna fire the janitor, and you're going to be in charge of the men's room, and you're going to be in charge of the ladies' room.
Yeah,
there you go.
We have bathroom attendants at the design edge. You walk in, we get some breath mints, your choice of cologne. Very fancy.
Well, good,
Yeah,
man.
but
Good.
I was saying before I got disconnected was, when you talk about like Joy, you look at the evolution of where she started, right? Like she's like anybody else, an inventor, did tools, bought all this inventory, had all this stuff tied up. And now like your heart's coming out of your chest. Like she said, if it didn't sell, she wouldn't be here right now. Right. So who can sell your product better than you?
Yeah.
That's what I always say, right? If you don't know your product, you're the one involved in it. You're going to be the one that sell it. You have the most passion behind it. So
Yeah,
I can see how that relates across the board on anything that you do. Really. I mean, I used to be in, Ford Motor Company and with BMW present to the board. I mean, they always wanted me presenting these new programs to the board. But I felt like if it was coming to my plant, I should know it and I could sell it better than anybody. So why wouldn't I? It's a, $20 million, $100 million job.
But Chris, I have to point out, in case you didn't realize, you have the ability to speak, right? You can definitely talk. We all know that, right? But not everyone can. I get a lot of inventors. The reason people come to me for licensing is because either they're shy or they don't know, or some of them are just abrasive. They're hard for me to talk to.
True.
Like everything's a confrontation, but they have a great idea, but they can't figure out why they can't sell it. But basically it's because they'll show it to a company like, what do you think of this? And they're like, well, it's kind of cool, but maybe it should be a little bit bigger. Like,
Yeah, defensive, right?
Yeah. So you do.
Yeah, that's a valid point.
You need a certain type of personality. And if you don't have it, you have to find someone who can.
Yeah, you have to find a partner or somebody that can do, like I always say, like even when I ran big companies, right? I know what I'm good at. I know what I'm not good at. And to really build the right team, what you're not good at, you need to fill it with somebody who's good at it and understands what your role is and what their role is, and really build it's kind of what we got with the UIA, right? With so much talent. And I'll never claim to be a toy expert or even know anything about toys. Why would I? I come to you.
Well, the analogy I use, which is similar to yours, is like anytime you're building a business, whatever that business is, you're essentially building a band, right? You can't have a band of 5 drummers, one harmonica player. You need your rhythm section, and you need your lead section, and you need your front man. And if you have to build your company the same way. You can't have 10, 15, 50 people of the same personality trying to do the same thing, competing for the same attention. It's never going to work. You have to build your team properly. Your team is very important. And whether that team is working directly for you or they are associates that you work with, you have to pick the right players to be on your team.
Yeah, I'm telling you, some of the best teams I've developed and worked with. I mean, even at BMW, we would talk about like we were there so much. I was going to work at 5 in the morning. I was leaving at 10, 11 o'clock at night, getting 2 calls at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. It was back then it was a startup. It was a greenscape plant. And we did so much together that we just, who you work well with and who you don't. And when we finally got the right team in place, we broke every BMW record, the dollars to the bottom line. We were blowing away every plant. We eventually became the #1 plant in the world. And it was because we had such a great team. And I just found that, man, it was so much fun. It didn't feel like work anymore. Even though we were working crazy hours, it was so much fun because everyone worked with each other.
Like we do crazy hours here at Design Edge. Like we stroll in like 10:30 and then we leave around like 2:30 in the afternoon. And we have if it wasn't for that 2.5 hour lunch in the middle, I don't know how we would get anything done.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt about it.
And I think, and I always say this, like, if you would call me at 2 in, I'm sleeping. So if you're calling me, you better have a solution to the problem, because if you expect to wake me up and have me come to the plant to solve your problem, I'm sure you, I got some magic. I'm going to make you disappear. Right. So, but what happens is took a plant that was in bad shape, an early startup, and over time built this amazing team and this amazing group that everyone knew what everybody was doing. And you didn't have any problem calling anybody. You knew you had to solve problems, and the payback to everybody, even bonuses. I mean, managers were getting BMW cars. It was unbelievable. I mean, and I still cherish that moment, way back. And I use that same philosophy in everything I do, whether I coach the kids in sports, whether I'm my own business, whether I'm working in other companies to help them. I think you got to have that reliability, credibility, accountability, trust. If you don't, it won't work. it usually falls apart in the end. So I can imagine the toy industry being pretty aggressive. I can see that.
So we are starting to get a few questions in for Matt. I know we're low on time, and we got
Well, Steve
Greenberg
hasn't logged
coming in.
on. As soon as Steve logs on, we'll.
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
he's logging on now.
questions? Real quick, we'll answer one or two.
Yeah. So the one question was, what would you say to young toy inventors for best advice to inventing into the toy world?
Keep inventing. It's not about the one great idea. It's like anything else. You have to practice, you have to hone your craft. So the more you invent, the better you're going to get.
Yeah. Okay, good. Any tips on, and I know you guys just personally, like putting together the right team, the different personalities.
Well, you don't necessarily have to judge it on whether or not you like that person. It's just whether or not you can get along with that person. And I think you'll gain a mutual respect for each other over what you do. So you're not putting together your besties friends. You're putting together a work team, and it's different personalities for different things or different traits. So really look for the strength in that person, not the weakness in that person.
Yeah, I think Matt said about drummers, right? Not everybody can be a shortstop or bat fourth or be a running back or a quarterback, but you need receivers, you need DNs, you need safeties, right? So it's all part of building the right team with the right people in the right spots. Critical.
Yeah.
And on that note, we're going to slide Matt out and slide my man, Steve Greenberg in.
Thanks, guys.
Hey, Matt, great. Thanks, Matty.
Hi.
What the heck is it?